Hello and welcome to this edition of Dr. Clark Reports. I'm your host, Dr. Gary Clark, and I'm speaking with my good friend, Mr. Billy Nungesser, the president of Plaquemines Parish. And greetings and welcome, my friend.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Yes, sir. And you serve as the president of Plaquemines Parish, and you've done an awfully good job there, a very good job. But will you tell us people about the scope and duties of your position as president of Plaquemines Parish?
Well, I'm elected by the people, and I work with non-council members to carry out all the duties of the government in Plaquemines Parish. The council is over the port, and I serve as the administrator for all of the checks and balances for the parish.
Yes, and with the 9 council members and the district members, are there any at-large members?
No,
yes.
it's non-individual. We tried to get that passed to get some at-large.
Yes.
And it's going to be a challenge after this next election. See, Plaquemines has an election this year. So I'll be out of office the end of this year as parish president. And with the shift in population, you'll have 5, 6 council members from Belle Chase area. And I'm very concerned about the needs of South Plaquemines and East Bank by not having the majority on the council. So we were pushing for 5 districts and 2 at large over the last couple of years, but we were unsuccessfully getting the support on the council to put that before the voters.
Now, as president, what becomes your primary responsibility as president of the parish?
Well, it's overseeing all the operations. And, you know, Plaquemines Parish only has 23,000 residents, but 25,000 people come to work in Plaquemines from every parish in the state. Plaquemines Parish is number 5 or 6 every year in the amount of tax dollars we send to Baton Rouge. It's a huge economic engine. So the day-to-day duties of parish president are important, but we also have to look out for creating development on that river, the oil and gas industry, and we're number 1 in oil and gas, and we're number 1 in seafood. So we've got to juggle all that, make it work together, and personalities, business interests, and blending all that together to work as a team. We've done a great job, and we've had a great team in doing that. But it's quite a challenge, and getting into office, running after Katrina, and getting in there and trying to figure out how to make that work together to get things accomplished.
But Plaquemines Parish is very rich in natural resources and also in terms of the commerce as well. And to be able to work with that blend and to keep it continuously working.
It is. It's been a challenge. You know, after Katrina and I was elected, and I was told I couldn't win because I wasn't born there. And then born there in Plaquemines means 3 generations. I was born in Algiers, but I went out to the factories, to the big refineries, and I said, let me see your vendor list. And as I looked through their vendor list, 90% of what they bought came out of Texas. And I said, well, why? And they said, well, our corporate office, everybody knocks on the door there and asks for business, and they come over here. And I said, well, why can't there's Louisiana companies can do this work. Well, today, those refineries in Plaquemines brag about 95% of their vendors are Louisiana companies. Now, it wasn't any fancy ribbon cutting, but I just put a good team together. We had a pastor, a school teacher, business people on an advisory committee for me, and we went out into those businesses and said, we need your help. We need to bring local businesses back to Plaquemines because everybody moved out after Katrina. And today, all those companies use Louisiana companies. So we are bringing people in from all over. The company that did the pipe installation used to come from Texas. Now it's a local company in Metairie. So they hired more people. And so we've been able to create jobs and economic growth from the companies there by just asking them to use local companies.
Well, you know, within your parish, it's a good blend that you have, and I like it, and it's outstanding. There is I guess you've got to have a certain personality of leadership. And what is the personality of leadership that you bring?
You know, I
Yes.
think what it is, and you can never forget that you're there to serve the people. You know, when I ran against 3 sitting council members. They said, Billy, you can't win. You're Republican and you wasn't born here. And I knocked on every door twice. And the first time around, I didn't get too warm a reception because I was running against somebody's friend or neighbor. But the second time around, people said, I see you working harder than anybody, and I'm going to give you a shot. And I think to this day, having a community meeting in every area of the parish, East and West Bank, every year, not just election year, and listening to the people, and always meeting with the people and listening to their concerns and doing what's best for them. The minute politicians put their political career or say, I don't have to get involved in that because I can't get anything accomplished for the next election. Because a lot of our goals, we've had $2 billion in levees being constructed in Plaquemines. That's going to go on for the next 10 years. And people, when I started working to get that funded, we were told, Billy, you're wasting your time. That's not going to happen before you leave office. I said, you're right. It's going to be very difficult to start those levees because usually it takes 15 years to go through the studies. Well, today we're starting construction of over $2 billion in levees because we knew it might not happen in my tenure, but it had to be done to protect the people of the parish and all of that investment that fuels a lot of jobs for all of Louisiana. So that journey, and the coastal plan, the same thing.
Right.
They were told me 15 years before you start pumping sand. We go out for bid in August. So we've done really good working with the Corps to get those things started ahead of schedule. But when I set out and put the team together to work on that coastal plan, I never dreamed we'd get it started this quick because it takes time. But most people don't want to tackle things that they can't get credit for before they leave office or before the next election. And a lot of the problems in Plaquemines and across the state, we need public servants that want to get and do the heavy lifting because there's going to be long-term results at the end.
Well, you're in a real unique position in the sense that not only do you work locally, your boots on the ground with your local constituency, but you also must work with the state officials and federal officials. How do you manage that interplay?
Well, the squeaky wheel gets ill. And my dad used to say, when you got right on your side, you can do no wrong. And I truly believe in my heart, when I go to Baton Rouge and Washington, and I'm asking for things, and I show them that, for instance, we're building a bypass road, the levees, and Deepin and Baptiste Colette is 71 miles to the eastern Gulf of Mexico. It's 130 from Mississippi and Alabama. They're not going to run all the way from Fourchon. So the Eastern Gulf, which is going to be a huge development in the oil industry in the coming years, is either going to be Venice or it's going to Mississippi, Alabama. And 25,000 people that come to work there, if those jobs go to Alabama, people will migrate over. The people from Ruston that come down here to go offshore. Well, so I had to sell that to the governor, first Governor Blanco, then Jindal, to support Deepin and Baptiste Colette. Then I had to go to Washington and sell it to our congressmen and senators that this was good for Louisiana. It's not just about Plaquemines Parish. So when you have the passion and believe that that is so important, and all three of those things are well underway. So we will keep the oil industry between Fourchon and Plaquemines Parish as that Eastern Gulf will explode with drilling and create jobs and opportunities here in Louisiana. We won't lose half of that infrastructure to Mississippi, Alabama.
I like what you say in the sense that we know it's good policy, but you have to sell it, and that becomes a key ingredient. But for my viewing audience here in Orleans Parish and beyond, give us the demographics of Plaquemines Parish, the demographic profile of Plaquemines Parish pre-Katrina and now post-Katrina.
Well, it's 100 miles long, both sides of the river. We have 2 ferry locations, and that's a challenge because we know how expensive the ferries are. And it's a great mode of transportation. I'm trying to convince to put one location to give long-term service to the East Bank because they deserve that. But 100 miles long, both sides of the river. We've got Grand Bayou people that can only get to their homes by boat. And people have lived there for generations. And so the challenge of going to Washington and saying, look, we're not moving out. This is those people's home. And if we give up Plaquemines Parish and make New Orleans the first line of defense, it's only a matter of time before people say, well, you can't live in New Orleans anymore. So we got to draw that line in the sand and protect it. The challenging thing is one part of the parish feeling like they're left out, because for so many years it was all about Belle Chase, and now with the majority of people living in Belle Chase, some lady the other day told me, she said, Billy, you're the first parish president that cuts grass all over the parish when you cut it in Belle Chase, and that's true. They deserve the same services as the heavily populated areas, and it's a challenge, but we do it, and everybody deserves the same services and the same treatment, and that's something I hope will continue. But it's been a very difficult task of trying to bring the East and West Bank, North and South together to work as a team to solve our problems. And you have that in every community. It's just a little more challenging logistically in Plaquemines Parish.
But through your tenure, what's brought you the greatest pleasure?
The greatest pleasure is getting a letter in the mail or getting someone stopping you on the street and saying, you know, Billy, I didn't vote. Well, one lady stopped me and said, I didn't vote for you because you wasn't born here, but thank you for what you're doing. My family moved back from Hammond because they see those federal levies building, and I didn't think they were ever coming back. And we're all back together in Ironton or in Braithwaite, and Braithwaite's got our challenges. They're not all back there. We're still building that levee. We got hit with Isaac. But we will get that levee in the federal system, and those people will be able to come home one day. We got really set back when Isaac flooded that community, and I cried that night because we did everything we could to try to protect them. It's not in the federal system yet, but we will get it there. And we will get it there because of the economic development on that river with new plants being built. We will get that levee in the federal system because everybody deserves to grow up and live where they were born and raised, if that's their choice.
Well, how do you convince individuals about the who go beyond the parish? How do you convince them about the true value of coastal restoration?
Well, we've got to do it smartly. First off, before Katrina, right after Katrina, Earl Armstrong, an old timer, took me out in the mouth of the river, and he said, Billy, you see that ridge there? That was pumped before Hurricane Betsy. I had 2,000 head of cattle when Katrina hit. Only 4 survived. They were on that ridge. And I said, take me back. We got to build ridges. Well, when I went to the coastal team and said, we got to do this, they said, you're crazy. The environmentalists will only let you pump 18 inches in grass. They don't want to build land. They want to build marsh. Well, we've spent over $1 billion on coastal projects that a Category 1 hurricane wipes out. You wouldn't invest your money in something that's going to be gone after Category 1. That ridge was pumped before Betsy. It's still there. So we developed a plan. Berms behind the levee, islands and ridges, and then the outer barrier islands that President Obama got BP to pay for, those sand berms.
Right.
And we're adding to those. Those 3 phases, when in place, will lower storm surge 18 to 20 feet to Plaquemines Parish. When that does happen, we no longer have to pray. We'll still pray, but we don't have to count on hopes and prayers that we don't get a hurricane. We will get beat up from a hurricane, but we won't be devastated. And that is important to New Orleans. Look, the flood wall around New Orleans, we'll never keep back the flood walls if we don't build back the barrier islands. 2 things. We're building the barrier islands. We got the first phase certified by the Court of Lower Storm Surge 5 feet. Then I went to Washington, and after 2 years, we got a letter that said they will recognize it as flood protection. So in August, when we built our first berm behind the levee, lower storm surge 5 feet, that levee could qualify with a little bit of modification for 100-year protection. We're doing it with $3 sand out the river instead of $50 clay, and by FEMA giving us that letter, your flood insurance will go down. So we're going to actually, by the berms and ridges out there, and as the storm surge goes down to New Orleans, it'll improve your rating, and the 100-year protection could become 500-year protection by building ridges and islands, because now we have FEMA recognizing. We were celebrating in Plaquemines because we have a certified plan, and we got FEMA to recognize it. Now I want to take that plan to all of coastal Louisiana and we got to quit going out and doing a dredge for 3 months, coming in and doing another one. We spend more money on mob and demob. We need the long-term lease dredges through the state and do everybody's coastal projects back to back. Leave that pipe out there. If we did that, we could get 10 to 1 what we're doing now, because what we're doing is we're putting a pipe out there, we're pumping $5 million, we spending $1 million to mob and demob, and we coming in and we coming back next month and doing the same thing. We got to do smarter with the money.
Now, you've been real successful in getting grants, very successful, and you can tell my viewers about that, because that's something that I think is a challenge for every community, but you've been successful.
You know, what I'd like to see is on a state level, a grant department, whether it's through the governor, lieutenant governors, or whatever, that helps communities, that does all the research. Because when I'd read about a grant that they got in California or a grant here, I'd go research it, and I'd say, let's go find out where they got this money, how they got this money, how did they qualify. And what I learned is you put up a little bit of money and you can get a lot of money to match it. And I think through the FEMA funds that we got, being able to match that and maximize the benefit to the community. For instance, we had non-metal buildings that we called community centers. Well, it was somebody sitting there waiting to rent a building for a wedding. That's not a community center to me. We convinced the council to build 4. We partnered with United Way and YMCA, and I wanted community centers where elderly people could go there and learn, get some nutrition training, work out, have their grandkids there with computers, but also I wanted to have a swimming pool. And I kept being told you can't do that with the money. So we got grant money, and then some grants didn't cover certain things. So we went out to private business and we raised, at first they said, Billy, this is not a time to raise money for swimming pools. I said, but when you put it all together, it brings the community back. We raised $6 million in 6 months in private money. Every community center has a swimming pool. They got workout equipment. We have doctors go in, because a lot of people in Plaquemines don't want to travel to the eye doctor. So we have eye care people come in, the seniors come there, they play bingo, they get their eyes checked, their hearing checked. We have a care center that we work with to provide services that they don't get covered. And it's been really successful. United Way is using that we call it the Legacy Campaign. They're using that across the country now to bring communities back together. And it's been a real pleasure to see people go there and see people working out and their kids playing in the swimming pool. But it's putting the team together and saying, we're going to do it. How do we put those puzzle pieces together and make it work?
And bringing together the right mix. And again, I would like to remind my viewing audience that I'm Gary Clark. I'm speaking with Mr. Billy Nungesser, who is the president of Plaquemines Parish here in the state of Louisiana. And yes, sir, would you please tell my viewing audience the Billy Nungesser story?
Well, I was born in Algiers. My father had a shrimp factory. And I can remember going door to door knocking on the people that work with him there to wake them up at 4 in the morning, walking the streets of Algiers, knocking on doors. That young, I knew where everybody lived, to say, hey, you got to come to work. And from that, we got into the offshore catering business. I lived offshore. Whenever we'd have a cook out there or a staff member that would quit or get run off, and they put me in these living quarters that the mattress stunk and weren't good living conditions, and I always wanted to change that, because offshore you only got 2 things: a good meal and a comfortable bed. You can't go home to your family at night. So one day I saw them loading containers here in New Orleans on the ships, and I'm like, man, that would work. So I went to my daddy and I said, Dad, I want to start this company for a living. He says, son, let me tell you, you're not that smart. If somebody was going to make something out of those shipping containers, they would have already thought about it. So I went to my mom, and she gave me the $7,500 left over in my college fund to buy a container, and I rented it to a company for 18 months, put 6 bunks in it. And I went to the oil companies, and I told a little white lie. Joe Kramer, who was in purchasing in Shell here in New Orleans, I said, I have these portable buildings, but I have none available. And he gave me a year contract to build 4. I went to the bank and borrowed the money, and that year I built 54 buildings for Shell out of old shipping containers and 30 for Chevron. And when I sold the company, we had 850 buildings in the Gulf, dominating the offshore living out of old shipping containers. We started building them for remote locations for camps and everything else. And I lived in one for 4 years.
Those containers are pretty large.
Yeah, and they're sturdy.
Yeah.
And so we improved the quality of life offshore for all those people. Every year I'd take the mattresses and I'd give them to homeless shelters and things, put new mattresses, because that's all you had was a comfortable bed. And one day out of that container, when I was living on Engineers Road in my yard, a friend invited me to a therapeutic riding center. And I helped a little girl get out of a wheelchair on a horseback. And I saw her light up. So I went back the next Saturday and did the same thing. Well, they canceled class, but as soon as I sat on the horse, it started raining. And she grabbed my arm so tight, she didn't want to get off that horse. And I made a promise to myself that day, if I could ever afford it, I would build a center where they would never cancel class. When I sold my company, I built the arena before I built my home. And when Katrina hit, we had 116 kids and adults that we lifted out of wheelchairs every day and rode those horses. And
that's amazing.
Greatest gift I ever did. That horse is a gift from God that does something special. As a matter of fact, when Katrina hit, I was working with several of the judges to do a class for first-time offenders. Instead of putting them in jail or juvenile, you respect that horse or he'll hurt you. And we took kids from the Bridge House and other things, and after 3 or 4 days, they're like, Mr. Billy, that horse loves me. I saw kids change overnight. There's a movie called Hope Ranch You get a chance, watch it. It's about 3 juveniles that didn't have the best upbringing, and they were in and out of juvenile. They sent them to a ranch on Montana, and at the end of the movie, the credits rolling, they all have productive lives and families. That horse teaches you got to respect it, and it teaches you some self-pride. So my goal was to take all of these young kids that need. I used to take busloads of kids that didn't have dads down to the ranch, and when I knew we had to do something to change the loose, one of the young men walked into my house with me, and I gave him a tour of the house because they'd go swimming at my house and they'd tour the farm, and it was through Catholic Charities we used to do this. And he said, "Mr. Nungesser, are you a rapper or a dope dealer?" But that was his perspective.
Right.
And I knew we had to take these young children and teach them something that gave them the self-respect they needed. And those horses were special. Now, we were 2 weeks away from opening when Isaac hit, and we flooded again. And the federal levy will be completed in 2 to 3 years there, and we will open that center back up. And I spoke to the Therapeutic Riding Convention in Baton Rouge last week, because we have 7 centers around the state. But we need more, because I saw a child with autism speak. I saw a young lady that was crippled in a car wreck that gave up, but that horse gave her hope back. And I went to her wedding last year, and she walks today. So I saw miracles happen. The thing is, not a lot of people are horse people. So we've got to engage and bring people from the inner city. Across the lake, there's one, and we've got to get these people, because that horse does miracles.
Yes, and who were your personal and professional influences along the way?
My mother and father. My mother gave me the greatest gift, that I love helping people. I get great joy. My mom used to tell me I'd give away my candy and have none for myself because it brought a smile to somebody's face. And that is the greatest gift I've ever got from my mother. From my father, he taught me to be true to myself. And when you do the right thing, you can do no wrong, no matter what anybody thinks. And he taught me the value of that. And those are the 2 greatest influences in my life, and taught me right from wrong. And it is a gift. I have friends that say, "Man, why do you give all? You've spent so much money at Riding Center. You could retire and travel the world." I said, "But you don't understand. I enjoy helping, and people that don't enjoy helping other people, I feel for them, because it's such a great feeling to give joy."
That's
to
your
other
passion
people.
project. Yes. But along that same vein, what was it that really motivated you to be involved in civic engagement? Because everyone does not have that. But what made you want to be involved civically?
I never thought
I
ran for state rep when I was 21 in Algiers, and ran 3rd out of 11 people to Senator Heitmeyer. And I did that more because my dad was involved, chief of staff to Governor Treen.
Yes.
And I didn't think I'd ever run again. And I saw no one stepping up that truly had a passion, and Plaquemines needed so much help after Katrina. And I saw in the 7.5 years I've been parish president, if you do a job, and you truly want to do a job, and you're not looking for a job, there's so much you can do. I mean, I look at what we as a team, and it's not just me, I've got great employees, I've got great friends, and the churches in the parish. The churches inspire me because those pastors came back and built their church before they built their home. Reverend Turner down in Venice, he was my inspiration to not give up on Plaquemines Parish. He came back in that parish and opened that church, didn't even rebuild his home for years. But he opened up that church and he helped people build their homes before he helped himself. And people like that inspire me. So I saw, as an elected official, if you truly care and you don't take no for an answer when you know you got right on your side, you can do anything. And so, people say, well, what do I have to do to get reelected? No, I'm going to do everything I can in that 4 years, because I may not run again or I may not get elected. But in those 4 years, I'm giving it 110%. If you do that as a public servant, and look, some days, I'll be honest, I wake up and I say, what am I doing? What am I doing? But I almost feel like, look, if it wasn't for the BP oil spill, I would not have this opportunity statewide. When I walk in a restaurant, people come up and shake me and say, man, thank you for standing up for us during that BP spill. Nobody else did. You were there for us. And I'm so honored. That's given me the opportunity to really make a difference in this state and in this country. Because, in my next venture as Lieutenant Governor, if there's an issue that can help us, I'll be in Washington. I know it's not my job as Lieutenant Governor, but my job as a public servant is to do all I can to help the people, and that's what we need, more public servants.
Is there a should I say, a parish executive, a parish president, or a county executive in the state or around the country that you like, that you say, this is who I know they're doing the sort of job that?
I think there's a lot of good people elected. Yes. And I think a lot of times when they get in there, it's all who you surround yourself with. I got a pastor, Reverend Giles, on the East Bank. He writes me some pretty tough letters, and I call him up, and we kind of butt heads, but he keeps me grounded to making sure I'm doing my job right. I think what happens to a lot of elected officials, and I support a lot of them, that they're my friends, but I get disappointed that they get in there and they think they're there for themselves and they're not there to do the work for the public. Unfortunately, they start looking at, what do I have to do to get reelected, and say, what can I do to do the right thing? And there's a lot of good public servants, but a lot of them. Yeah. My greatest disappointment, I can tell you that, is when I've tried to rally some people to get involved in an issue, and they don't, because there's always going to be some people for and against an issue, and they're not going to get involved because they don't have to, because they're going to make some people mad, and public officials deserve to listen to the public and then truly do what's best for the public in their eyes. And they're going to make some people mad. Look, I've taken some sides on issues that people say, hey, look, you don't need to do that. I'm like, no, I believe in it. We'll all get out, and then we'll come to the best decision for the public.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have about 2 minutes or so remaining. Will you please tell my viewing audience your vision for not only the parish but for the state of Louisiana, and couple that also with the challenge that's before us?
Well, I think the challenge before us is we've got to bring government back to working for the people, both on a local, state, and federal level. We've got to make sure that we're pulling in the same direction. We got to quit fighting. We've got to come together. We're going to disagree, but we've got to bring back together, working together as a team. We're not going to get everything we want. Sit down and listen and work out those differences and work across the aisle to make sure we're doing the best job for the public. As I travel the state and running for Lieutenant Governor, I think the biggest challenge is to bring every corner state together on the tourism side, which is my job, and make sure we've got North Louisiana realizing that we're not the enemy down here, that we're going to promote North Louisiana from within New Orleans, and that we're going to work as a team across the state to promote our great state and get people to come into this state and visit all corners of the state, and we can do that.
Yes, I want to thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
It's been absolutely great. And again, this is Dr. Clark's report, and as always, it's been a pleasure.